Hello and welcome to a special Christmas edition of Ray of Light, the podcast all about reading, writing and happiness with me, Eleanor Ray. It's our second Christmas special today, and I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Cressida McLaughlin, a best-selling contemporary romance author who has sold over 1 million copies of her books. Cressida writes escapist feel-good novels, the kind that warm your heart, make you smile and leave you wanting more. Her new book, The Secret Mistletoe Promise, is the second in her Secret Bookshop series, and it's a twinkly, festive story full of love, second chances and Christmas sparkle. It's been warming my winter evenings these last few nights, and I absolutely love it. We'll be talking about what went into the book, how Cressida captures that warm holiday magic, and what she thinks makes a great holiday romance, plus a little about her writing life. Cressida, thank you so much for being here, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, I'd love to talk about The Secret Mistletoe Promise, which, as I said, I've been reading over this last week. Really enjoy it. Can you tell us a little bit more about the story? Who's Imogen? What brings her to this village at Christmas time?
The Secret Mistletoe Promise is the second in my Secret Bookshop series, but it's a story that can be read all on its own. It's about Imogen, who has, at the very beginning of the book, just run away from her wedding. She's left the altar, she's run to a station, got on the train, and come up to Mistingham on the North Norfolk coast. And it's where her grandmother, Birdie, lives. And her grandmother is the person she is sort of estranged from, but she also feels safest around. They had a really good relationship when she was younger, and she knows that in this moment of trauma that Birdie is the person she needs to escape to, so she can leave what she's just done behind for a bit and sort out her feelings.
It's been such a fun read and really beautifully written as well. I really enjoyed the writing. We'll talk about that in a minute. What inspired this book? Why A Runaway Bride? Why Christmas?
I love writing Christmas books. I tend to do 2 books a year, a Christmas book and a summer book. And there's something about writing a romance set at Christmas. I think you can just be a little bit extra with everything, with the romance, with the magic, with the sparkle. Everyone wants a bit of escapism. There's so many kind of mystical, magical elements to Christmas with Santa Claus and his reindeer. And I think that you can pack all of that into a Christmas romance. And this time round, I really wanted to write a character who has done something completely out of character for her. She's imploded her own life. And I wanted to explore what it would be like for her to run away to this place where she felt like she had family and she felt really safe there, and about how the season can make you assess your expectations and other people's expectations of you. And so I wanted to bring all those elements together. But I don't often start with quite a dramatic beginning for my heroine, but I really wanted to see how something like that would really shake up my main character.
You love that about Imogen. I liked that she was someone who went along with things, and she was a people pleaser, and she did things because other people wanted her to. And then she has this moment of realization in the back of the church. It's like, actually, this is too far. What am I doing? This is a terrible mistake. And it felt like Mistingham was the real place for her to discover that actually what she really wants is something different from what maybe her parents and her fiance want for her. And I think the setting and the Christmas, it felt really cozy and warm, but it never kind of tipped over into saccharine, which I really enjoyed. How did you get that balance?
Yeah, I love everything about Christmas, but I do also worry sometimes that it can go over the top, and that sometimes,
Mm.
certainly in kind of Hallmark Christmas movies, it's as if they've thrown everything at the wall. And what I wanted was this balance where it does feel magic and sparkly and twinkly, but also it feels real for Imogen. So I didn't want her to be swept up so much in the magic of Christmas that she's making choices that she won't want to kind of keep going with after Christmas is over. I think that there's something about the seaside at Christmas that's really, really cozy, but it's also quite bleak. You know, if you go for a walk on the prom and there's huge waves crashing. So I felt like it was the perfect setting for that balance of some really cozy stuff, but also it's very cold and it's a bit bitter, and it's the right place for Imogen to kind of have those two sides so she can really think about what she wants to do.
You do that really well, and I like how she has a lot of guilt over what she's done. She knows it's the right decision for her, but she knows it's the wrong way to do it. Like
Yeah,
leaving, no one deserves to be left at the altar. And she feels
exactly.
dreadful about that. And I really like that element. And I think you're right, it does go well with it's this beautiful, sparkly Christmas setting, but it's cold and it is bleak at times. And I think that's a really nice balance and you get that contrast really beautifully. And talking of beautiful, you have such beautiful passages in your writing. I really enjoyed reading it, especially when you talk about the landscape. The description is so lovely. Is that an element that you enjoy?
I think that the setting is always a character in itself in my books. So I've written lots of books set in Cornwall, which I love doing, but this series is set in Norfolk and it's where I live. So I really wanted to write a series set in Norfolk. I love setting that scene and I love how the mood of the landscape can inspire the moods of the characters, how they can take something away from that. And I also think that dark wintry nights with lights twinkling on the sea, or even bleak fields where there's a bit of mist, I think that they can add real atmosphere and romance to a book. And that's something that I really love writing about.
It was lovely. So, talking of beautiful things, there's a baker in the book called Dexter. Can you tell us a little bit about his role in Imogen's journey and how you imagined him?
Yes, in some ways, I think Dexter is one of my most uncomplicated heroes. I would say he's a cinnamon roll hero, which, if you've not heard that term, it just means he's a really sweet, generous, kind, nice man, really kind of good countenance, really helpful. And in lots of ways, I wanted him to have that role in the story for Imogen because she's in a period of such kind of emotional turmoil. He has had a difficult past. He's a widower, so he's dealing with that and he's bringing up his daughter. Not everything is rosy in his life, but I think part of his role in the story is to show Imogen that even when difficult things happen, when you have to deal with a lot, there's lots of people that are around to help you and you can work through it and find out what you want to do. And obviously, there's the romance element. So he may end up making a promise with Imogen that feeds some of the story further down the line. But I really loved writing their scenes together and the way that even when she was kind of frantic and stressed, he was always there to kind of let her talk things through and to show a different perspective.
I think that's really interesting. And I was talking to Heidi Swain a couple of episodes ago about All Wrapped Up, which is her latest novel, an autumn novel. And she was talking about how her main character is a widow. And because of that, she gave him, what was it, a cinnamon roll man? Yes, someone like that who was lovely to her the whole way because she was on a healing journey and she needed someone who wasn't going to mess her around. Whereas I
Yeah,
think other books where you've got a heroine maybe who's it's in a better pace emotionally, you can put more of the emotion into the romance and what's going on and does he mess around a bit and is he not perfect? But when
yeah,
she's going through a really hard time, you want someone really steady there to
exactly.
support her.
And I think because she's come from this relationship, which she's obviously realized isn't right for her because she's run away from it, I wanted to be there to be something different for her when she gets to Mistingham. So you've still got lots of conflict in the book, I think, but it's not
Yes.
necessarily with the central romance.
Yes, it's more inner conflict rather
Yeah.
than external conflict, which I really liked. Now, it's not all about romantic love. Can you tell us a little bit about the village and the sense of community and how that helps her on her journey?
Yeah, I love writing community and I really love writing a community that features in more than one book because I get to go back and spend time with the characters. But my readers, if they've read the first one and go back to the second one, then they'll meet some familiar people. So just wanted somewhere with loads of different characters that you would get in a small village community like that. But they've all come from different backgrounds and a few of them have had difficult times as well. And so when Imogen turns up, they know not to necessarily be judgmental, but to just allow her to kind of find her feet there and help her on her way with various different things. And I wanted to include lots of kind of Christmassy community events like ice skating, there's mistletoe decorating, wreath making, things like that. So I wanted her to land in quite a safe place, which would be safe for the reader and also allow them to kind of get involved in all the Christmassy elements.
And I really enjoyed I hadn't read the first Secret Bookshop, but I think I'm going to go back now
Oh,
because you finish off the story of some of the characters who were in that book, in this book. I won't give too much away, but I imagine if you've read the first book as well, it's very satisfying. And if you haven't, it makes you want to go back and read that first one.
I hope so. I love doing that as well. So I like people to be able to pick up any of my books and have a complete story so they don't feel they need to go back. But then it's really nice for readers, I think, and certainly for me as a reader, to go back somewhere familiar.
Yeah, I think that's lovely. I'd love to do that. My books are all standalones at the moment, but I would love to go back and visit some of the other characters when their story's done and see how they're getting on.
It's such a nice thing to do. And quite often,
Mm.
if I've got a few books set in London, and even though I haven't got kind of full on storylines, I do love putting little cameos in from previous books. So they just
Yes.
appear very briefly in one scene, and it's like an Easter egg for the reader.
Oh, I bet readers love it. Brilliant. Now, you've written a lot of books. How many?
This is my 18th book.
Wow. Can you tell us about how you got started, your path to publication, and how you keep going on so many books?
Yeah, it was, I think, like a lot of writers, it was a very long and twisty journey. I always loved reading books, but writing wasn't something that I was interested in doing. But then one of my first jobs after university was working for the local adult education service, and they offered you a chance to do a free term of a course if you wanted to. At that time, they had a bit of spare money, they would allow their staff to do that. And I thought, I have to take them up on it. And I thought, I love reading books, so maybe I'll try creative writing. And so I did a term of that and I fell completely in love with it. And I decided I wanted to write a book and get published, and that would be my career. So I finished the year of that. And then came a period of about 5 or 6 years where I wrote a book and I sent it off to agents and I got rejection letters. So I think I've got 4 unpublished books and over 50
Wow.
rejection letters in my background. But then I started doing some freelance stuff for a website called Novelicious, which was about writing and about publishing, and did book reviews. And I got the chance to go to a book launch for another author. And so I went to that, and I'd just written this book and I'd finally got myself an agent, and my book was out on submission and was getting really lovely rejections, but rejections nonetheless. And then I got chatting to this other author's editor, and I said, "Oh, I've written a book." And she was like, "Oh, we've not seen it. Can you send it over to me?" And so I sent off my book to her. I didn't hear anything back for ages. And then in the meantime, my agent decided that she was going to change career, and I was suddenly back to kind of square one, having to submit on the slush pile again. And I was just, I'd got so close, and then suddenly I was almost prepared to give up because it was just so heartbreaking. And then I remembered that I'd sent this editor my book. And so I emailed her, I think 3 or 4 months after I'd seen her. And she replied and said, "Do you want to come to London and have lunch and we could talk about it?" And I think I ran around the office because I was at work. I ran around the office and I forced myself to wait half an hour before I replied, and didn't say, "I'm on the train now, I'm coming now." But we met up for lunch and we discussed various ideas, and we fixed on a new idea. And that was my first ever book deal with HarperCollins. And that was 10 years ago, and I'm still with the same editor now. So we've worked on 80 books together. But yes, it was a very long and windy path. And in the end, a kind of combination of perseverance and being in the right place at the right time, I think.
Oh, amazing. Hey, can I ask, were the early books that you wrote, were they romances or were they something different?
They're all romances,
Okay.
cozy romances set in different places. The first one is called A Christmas Tale, and it's about a dog walker called Cat who sticks her noses into all the lives of the owners of the dogs that she walks and causes huge amounts of mayhem while also finding romance along the way. And I had great fun writing that.
What do you think it was about the 4 books that didn't get published and then the books that subsequently went on to be published and successful? Can you pinpoint anything? Was it just your writing skill or the concept or something about the market? What do you think it might be?
I wonder if it's really about the concept, and something
Mm.
that my editor has really taught me and is still teaching me today is that you just need a really strong premise. And I think that although maybe some of my books were good stories, I wonder if the concept wasn't strong enough. I think that that becomes more and more necessary today because there are so many books out there. There's so many kind of digital firsts, which is brilliant for authors. And I think that's wonderful. And also for readers because they get choice. But it does mean it's harder to stand out. I'm also not sure it's necessarily about the story. But I think as long as you're presenting it in a way that feels like a really complete package, then that's something that an editor or an agent will go, "Oh, this sounds interesting." Because I think if you're on a slush pile, they have so little time to decide which ones they're going to kind of sit and read. And so I think at the beginning, certainly, it's about having a really strong premise that is then going to catch the eye of someone, and then they'll go on and read it and see whether they like the writing.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It's you can be the best writer in the world, but you have to write something that people are going to want to read and be able to know what it is that they're getting and know that they're going to want to read it from a cover, a line.
I think that's really difficult for aspiring authors to understand because they know that they've picked books because they love the cover or they love the shout line. But I think when you're writing your own story, the most important thing is that you're passionate about it. So you have to write the story that is in your heart and you're really invested in.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's a hard because you want to write the book that you want to write. You don't
Yeah,
want to write for the market or for this or that and the other. You want to write the best book that you can. So I'll ask you in a minute for your advice to aspiring authors to help them get there. But I would say write the book you want to write, but then think the people that are going to love this book, what else would they love? Which other
yeah,
books would they love? And it's not that you want to write the same book, but you want to have something so they know that this is the kind of thing they're going to want. You might write something that's completely unique, but what else would that reader who wants your completely unique book have in their basket? What else would
yeah.
they be buying? What advice would you have for aspiring authors?
I definitely agree with that one. I think that's important for
Hmm.
comparison authors so that they can see where it might fit in the market. The two pieces that I usually give are that one about writing the book that you want to write. And then the other thing I think is get to the end of a first draft. Don't worry about how messy or incomplete it is. So I would say, even if it's the most difficult thing in the world and you're someone who likes making everything feel great before you move on, I would say try and get to the end of a first draft, even if it's too short, or even if it's too long, or even if there's gaps in it. If you've got something that feels like it could become a whole book, then you've got something to work with and you'll feel more confident about that. And it's so hard to do because you've got these kind of little gremlins on your shoulder saying, "Oh, what if it's not good enough?" But yeah, I would say power through, try and get to the end of a draft, and then you can go back and turn it into something that you're really happy with.
Absolutely. Get it written, then get it right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Now, it sounds like one of your passions has always been Christmas books, with your very first book that was published. You've written a lot of Christmas books now. How do you keep it fresh every time? What do you do to keep things different?
I think different settings help. And then I just think about different kind of Christmassy elements and also people's attitudes towards Christmas because not everyone loves it. And sometimes if you have someone who finds it difficult for some reason or struggles with some elements of it, then that can kind of put a slant on the story. So I think if you throw in lots of different Christmassy perspectives, then that can help make a book feel fresh and more interesting.
You must love Christmas.
I do love Christmas. I do. I find it quite difficult and in some respects in terms of the expectations, which is what I wanted to explore with Imogen. But I love the kind of lead up to Christmas. I've got fairy lights in my office all year round. And so I love kind of walking around the neighborhood and looking at everyone's Christmas decorations. I love going to local National Trust places and eating mince pies and seeing all their decorations. I think it's a really beautiful kind of festive time, but it obviously can be difficult for everyone. My mum and dad both sadly died earlier this year. So our Christmases, which were always down in London with them, is going to be incredibly different this year. It's just going to be me and my husband. And we're going to make it really Christmassy and go for a walk on the beach. And it's going to be lovely. But it is also going to be difficult because we're having to kind of change from doing something that we used to do. And I think that happens to everyone at some point in their lives. Relationships break up or they have feuds with their families or they lose someone that they loved. So I think it's important to be mindful that Christmas can be both wonderful and really difficult for people all at the same time.
I think it's a very poignant time. My dad passed away the year before last, just
Mm.
after Christmas. And That same Christmas, I was having treatment for cancer. Normally, we go to Spain at Christmas. My husband isn't a big Christmas fan. He likes to go somewhere warm and have a break from the greyness. And we couldn't go away that year. I couldn't leave the country. So I made such an effort to make a really lovely Christmas for my kids. So we got a tree and I had all the stockings everywhere and we decorated in a way we don't normally bother because we go away. And it was lovely. But now we can go away again for Christmas. We go to Spain. The kids are like, no. We don't want to go. We want to stay and have the Christmas tree and that. And da, da, da.
Of course.
But yeah, it is. It's a hard time of year because it reminds you of Christmases past and how things have changed.
But I think the whole notion of Christmas traditions also gives you something to anchor onto. So if you've got something really difficult that you're facing, you can look at the magical bits of Christmas and think, well, what did my mum and dad do? We can do it in this way and we can turn it into our own tradition. So I feel like the season itself helps you through difficult times as well, just by having all these kind of rituals and traditions, which are things that can be really helpful in difficult times. So yeah, I just think it's magical for lots of reasons, really.
Now, talking of traditions, do you have any festive rituals when you're writing a Christmas book? Do you play Christmas music? Do you decorate?
I'm quite often writing my Christmas books in the middle of summer, so it's always really difficult. So what I tend to do is I shut the blinds in my office and then I put on all my fairy lights. I've got a candle that I light and then I put on the Michael Bublé Christmas album really low in the background, and that really helps me kind of transport myself to Christmas. But also I've got lots of lovely photos of the North Norfolk coast in November and December when the sea is grey or it's kind of white topped. And so looking at those as well puts me in that place where you're huddled up against the cold.
You've got it all worked out. And your sea descriptions are lovely. Those were some of my favourite descriptions in your writing. Now, you clearly love writing, 18 books in. What do you love the most about it?
Oh, there's so many different things. I think in terms of writing, I love that spark of a new idea. I love writing a first draft when there's no constraints on you and you're getting to know your characters and you're finding out what this story is going to be about. I really love the freedom of that first draft. I absolutely love hearing from readers, finding out that my book has got them through a tough time or just they're waiting for it at Christmas to kind of get them in the mood. Or I've had a couple of people saying that my books have got them back into reading after a long absence of not sitting down with a book for entertainment. And that is always something that I absolutely love. And I love going out to events and meeting readers as well and getting messages on Instagram. So because it can feel like sometimes it's just you and your characters for long periods of time. It's quite a kind of isolating thing. So then at the end, when you've written a story and you get feedback and you know that your story and your characters have really hit the spot for someone, they've really loved them, that's a brilliant thing as well.
Wonderful. And what's your least favourite part? Tell us about what you find hard about writing at times and then how you get through it.
Yeah, I think that the edit stage, the structural edit stage, so the kind of time when you've sent your book off to your editor and agent and they've come back and said, this is great, but you need to change this character's perspective or you need to change this element of the plot. I think that's the most difficult part for me because quite often it's like kind of unpicking a knitted jumper, pulling it all apart and then kind of re-knitting it back together in a different way. But I think it's also the most rewarding part because when you're rewriting it and you can see it coming together and you know that it's a much, much better book than that first draft, it feels like you've really worked hard to create something good. So that is a really difficult part, but I think it's conversely one of the worst and best parts of being a writer.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Whenever I send off a book, I'm always hoping they're just going to say, oh, it's brilliant. Well done and great work. And they never do. And I'm always disappointed. Even after writing a number of books now, I get the email back saying, oh, no. Again, they haven't loved it straight away.
And second guess what my editor's going to make me change. And I'm never right. Like I've never thought of the thing. You need that perspective from other people to help you kind of really pull out the story.
I think if my editor came back and said, oh, it is perfect, you'd be like, wait a minute, what have you done with my editor? Who are you? So moving along from our books for a minute, do you have any other novels, maybe something that's lesser known that isn't a bestseller yet, that you'd really think deserves more readers, that you'd like to shine a spotlight on?
I read so many books and there's so many that I love. This is a writer called Emily Stone, and I think she is quite well known, but I'm reading her book at the moment, which is a Christmas one, and it's called Yours for the Season. And
Okay.
it is absolutely brilliant. It's the first book I've read of hers, and it's about a woman who has split up with who she thinks is the love of her life, and he wants her after 6 months of not seeing him, he turns up on her doorstep and asks her to accompany him for their family Christmas in the Cairngorms because he's told his mum that they've got back together. So she's kind of thrust into this big family Christmas with a family that she thought was going to become her own. But then they broke up in a really unexpected way. So that's one I would really recommend if you want a really romantic, twinkly Christmas book for this year.
Well, lovely. Oh, that's a really interesting premise, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
And now you've written a lot of books. Do you have a favourite?
one that I loved writing and was probably my silliest book, but it was just brilliant for me. It was called A Cornish Love Story. So it's last summer's book, and it's obviously set in Cornwall. It's about a woman who split up with the love of her life kind of 10 years before. There's this old crumbly mansion house on the cliffs that has just been renovated and turned into this amazing sparkly glass palace, which is all run by an app. So it's like Alexa or Siri on steroids. And she has to go and cover the open house for the local newspaper that she writes for. And she gets there and discovers that the architect who's done it up is her ex, who she hasn't seen for a decade. And so she's seen him for the first time in 10 years. And then the house goes wrong and they get trapped in it together overnight and it won't let them out. So it's the first one that's dual timeline. So I was able to kind of look at them falling in love as teenagers and what happened to go wrong. The modern day premise is just set over one night when they're stuck together in this amazing house that will not let them out.
I love that. And I love a dual timeline as well. I often do my books either as dual timeline or different perspectives. I
Yeah.
find it adds the suspense.
This
And
is like it's the best thing because you think, oh no, I want to stay in this time period or with this character. And then you get to the end of the chapter and you're on to the next one. And then you're like, oh no, I want to stay here now. It's such a good thing that propels the reader forward, wanting to kind of find out what's happening.
yes, yes, I love that. So in Everything is Beautiful, which was my first novel as Eleanor Ray, it's about a hoarder who uncovers the secret to her past underneath her hoards. And
Wow.
so it's dual timeline. So it starts with her at all these towers of objects. And then you go back and you see why those particular objects are the things that she collects. And it's all to do with her boyfriend and her best friend went missing at the same time. She had to piece together that they'd run off. But you see her having these moments, just sharing like a mug of tea or something with them. And then you see her surrounded by towers and towers and towers of mugs because she holds on to the objects because she's lost the people. But then underneath the objects, there's a clue to what really happens. And so that's her story.
Wow.
I had the idea for a hoarder and then I had the idea for the backstory. And I think it's that backstory that really brings it to life and makes it kind of brings that emotional resonance.
I think those kind of secrets, the reasons why people have become the way they are, is one of
Yes,
the main things that I think you get out of books because you want to know what's driving that character, why they have become this person. And that's a brilliant way of kind of doing it so almost literally that like her past is buried underneath all these objects.
I
So
love writing it.
yeah.
I love reading it as well. Brilliant. So, what are you working on now? What can readers look forward to?
I'm doing a big rewrite on my summer book, but it's for summer 2027. So I'm not
Okay.
having a book out next summer. I'm working on this one, which is coming out in over a year's time, which is quite good because there's lots of work to do on it. But I'm really enjoying it. It's a bit more rom-commy than some of my other books, but so it's something slightly different for me, but it's something I'm having a huge amount of fun with. And then I will be writing the third book in the Secret Bookshop series.
So, Cressida, thank you so much. This has been just the kind of warm Christmas sparkle I was hoping for today. And thank you, listeners. If you've enjoyed this Christmas special edition of Ray of Light, please do like and subscribe and come say hello. I'm at Eleanor Ray Books across social media. So, if you're looking for a heartwarming Christmas read, then The Secret Mistletoe Promise is just what you're looking for. And if you want something slightly different, but with that same feel-good, cozy magic, you might like my own book, See the Stars, which is out in hardback now and paperback in February. It's about hope, connection, and a little bit of stargazing under the winter skies. Wishing you all a wonderful festive season. I'll be back in the new year to talk more about reading, writing, and happiness.